have someone in the studio who's been nurturing careers since the time I started going to school as the executive director of Symbiosis International University. We have in the studio Dr. Anita Patankar. How important are marks for a child's career?
I think marks have a role to play, and they are an indicator of how well you fit into the schooling system. I think marks do not reflect the overall ability that a student has to fit into this world and to navigate the future in the world.
How do you ensure that the courses you are doing today are actually industry ready? Because in North India, 3 states, Haryana, Punjab, Himachal, they give engineers every year. Only 12% of them are industry hireable.
You're absolutely right. Is our education future proof? I don't think anyone's going to be able to say that, because what is future proof? So at Symbiosis, we've figured out a couple of things. We know for sure that people are going to.
Most education institutes are profit driven. Was profit one of the key elements of you guys moving outside India and choosing Dubai as the economy?
I think there is a perception, and I don't blame the public for having this perception. We are a not for profit. And even in Dubai, we are a not for profit.
If education is something you've always been passionate about and still believe, education at the end of the day is just a business. Education was once a passion driven work, a commitment. Today, it is purely a business. I have someone in the studio who's been teaching, who's been educating, who's been nurturing careers since the time I started going to school. Yes, since 1985, she's only been changing, nurturing, and making careers for people. And she still continues to do that at this young age. She is now in Dubai as the executive director of Symbiosis International University. We have in the studio Dr. Anita Patankar. Who is Anita?
Anita is extremely hopeful, very optimistic. The glass is always overflowing. I love being with young adults. I think I get along with young adults better than I get along with people my own age. I am envious of the opportunities that young adults have today, but also a little worried for them. Uh, I try to learn and help students learn. I am in love with 3 men in my life, my husband and my 2 sons. I love cooking. I love reading. That's who Anita is.
You've traveled a lot in your life.
Yes.
What makes Dubai special?
To give you the simplest answer, as a woman my age, to be in a city where I feel completely safe is something I have never experienced.
Hmm.
I've traveled across the breadth and the width of this world, and in no city have I experienced that.
Yeah.
For me to be my age and living for all practical purposes alone, because my husband joins me only once in a while, in this city has been tremendously liberating for me. I have never experienced this. I went and watched a movie all by myself. The younger generation is used to doing that,
Yeah.
but my generation is not. Just the pleasure of being in a city that is safe, that is multicultural, where you bump into so many people from so many different geographies, cultures. I'm just blessed to have this opportunity. And of course, because I'm here with Symbiosis,
Yeah.
and Symbiosis is exactly that. I joined Symbiosis because it was multicultural.
Vasudev Kutumbakam.
Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, absolutely. I live that. I've learned that from the best, our founder, Professor Dr. S.B. Muzumdar. And so it's a heady experience for sure.
Do you think you're a little too late to come to Dubai?
Oh, not at all. Are you calling me old?
No, what I'm saying is maybe you would have loved to explore Dubai 5 years ago more.
See, I'm not someone who looks back and says, I wish I had done this.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
believe in regrets. I don't look back and say, I wish, because 5 years ago, I was living the dream in India.
Hmm.
Um, so no, I don't think so. I think this is the time.
Okay.
This is the perfect time. And I grab each opportunity as it comes. So no, I think I was meant to be here in 2024.
Are you a student more or a teacher more?
I think I'm a learner more.
Okay.
I think the student teacher implies a hierarchy.
Hmm.
Um my time learning about the liberal arts program and that life is a learning journey has taught me that we are all learners,
Yeah.
and you learn all the time from people around you. Students, especially in classroom settings, I have learned the most from.
Hmm.
I think one of the joys of being my age in an education institution is that um, they take a very parental role with me when it comes to teaching me technology,
Yeah.
and they feel that they are updating me, and I love that. So they'll come in and they'll say, I'll help you with this, I'll teach you this, do you know this? I learned how to play video games
You do?
through my students. I don't like it, but they try to teach me. So I think uh, it's about learning about how young people look at the world. I grew up in a very different time. My life experiences have been very different. They're digital natives. Morality has changed. The way that they look at the world, their priorities have changed. And therefore, it's very refreshing, to spend time with them. I feel, I'm a better parent because by the time my kids came into this world and then grew up, I was already used to so many changing changing trends. So whether it's technology, whether it's AI, whether it is cultural values, whether it's just the way that you look at political regimes, uh, I think the youth are driving a lot of the conversation, discussions, questions, and therefore very happy to constantly be learned. And you can't be effective if you don't move with the times.
Yeah, true.
And what better way than, you know, uh, helping that navigation by young, interested people?
Symbiosis always had a dream to go global, or was it something which just nurtured because the economies globally were doing well?
With just let me give you a little bit of the genesis story. So in the late 1960s, our founder, Professor Dr. S.P. Muzumdar, was a botany professor at the very famous Ferguson College in Pune. He also happened to be the warden. He and his family stayed at the Ferguson College. And a lot of foreign students used to study there, primarily from Asia, Africa, also other countries. And he felt that they were discriminated against. Uh, India in those days, even now it hasn't changed much. Um, and therefore, he felt that he needed to provide a safe space for them, a home away from home. Symbiosis was born from that dream of providing a home away from home for foreign students. Started in his home and then slowly grew into a cultural center. I don't think he dreamt that it would become the university that it has become.
Yeah.
It's evolved organically. For him, he felt good.
Hmm.
His life partner, his wife, uh, was wonderfully committed, and their children as well, to helping foreign students do well. I think over the years, it became known within India as a multicultural, international space. And Indians started sending their students there because they felt that you didn't have to travel abroad to get a global experience.
True.
Classrooms were international because these students brought in their experiences, their expectations, their questions. I don't think he really thought of, let me go global.
Hmm.
Uh, I think we grew as a need based university. Even within India, the growth across Maharashtra and across the country has been in response to need. So in most of the places, the state governments have invited us.
Yeah.
That why don't you set up an educational campus here? The second reason I think has been that we've had alum, study at Symbiosis Institutes, and then they've gone across the world, and a large number of them, 1,100 plus. Can you imagine? Only here,
In UAE.
and most of them in Dubai. And they've often been talking to the chancellor and now the pro chancellor, Dr. Vidya, saying, why aren't you here? There are wonderful Indian schools here,
Yeah.
but we need the best of Indian higher education.
Yeah, true.
And therefore, they've been after us for many, many years, saying, come here, we'll support you. They are at some of the best companies and, at positions where they've been able to tell us, don't worry. We'll help you navigate this place. We'll help you with students. We'll help you with curriculum. So, and I think technically, to be a truly international university, it's not just students and faculty who need to be international, but I think you also have to have your footprint
Yeah.
in the global market. And therefore, Dubai happened. And it's a new experience. It's a great experience because the market is different.
Yeah.
54 years in India, and we are known for quality education. We're known for internationalized curriculum. We're known for employability. We were talking before this podcast that, we're 31 in the world, QS World Rankings on employer reputation. Dubai, we knew.
Hmm.
The Indian diaspora knows about us. If you know someone working with you who's been from Symbiosis or India, then the chances are that you've heard about Symbiosis, but many others haven't, and therefore for us it's a new experience. We're starting new in a new country, new economy, new competition. So I think it's great experience for us, and this is chapter 2.
I was about to ask you a question on the same. So, what exactly does an accredited course means for a student?
So imagine that you go to a university and you study and you get a piece of paper that says you are a qualified degree holder of that university.
Yeah.
You feel happy, you party. A week later, you go to an organization and you apply for a job. And the HR guy looks at your piece of paper and say, wonderful, very nice. But we don't recognize this. Or our country doesn't recognize this. Or you apply for a government job.
Yeah.
And the guy says, oh, this isn't going to work for a government job. Now, that is a situation where quality assurance becomes an issue, that you've joined an organization, you've studied without inquiring. And I think this is where a large number of students across the world have struggled and suffered because they are not experts in investigating or assessing quality of education. So therefore, rankings count.
Yeah.
Accreditations count.
True.
And accreditations have more value because you have a government putting the stamp of recognition saying this program has been assessed and has been found to meet global standards. This degree will work anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So here we have the CAA accreditation. Okay. So the Ministry of Education, UAE, has this commission for academic accreditation, and it's an agency that's filled with amazingly intelligent and academically driven people. And their job is to assess the university, their policies, and each and every single program. So they're going through programs and they're saying, is the content relevant? Is it up to date? Right from the list of books that you're referring to, the way you're going to assess students, your evaluation policies, they check everything and they're comparing with global standards. And they're asking the question, would this person be able to deliver if a government agency or an organization within our country were to hire them 4 years from now, 5 years from now, 6 years from now? At the same time, they're asking, can this education travel across the world And will a student be able to contribute globally? If the answer is yes to both those questions, they're giving a stamp of approval. When we entered into UAE and offered our program in September of the last year, we came in saying, and this is what the Chancellor, Professor Muzumdar, has always said, we will not offer a program unless it has 100% accreditation from any agency that is relevant. So we came in probably as the only Indian university to have full academic accreditation for every single program. Because a university could be, listed and recognized. Every single program need not be. And therefore, parents have to be doubly sure. So, what does it mean? It means that you will get equivalence automatically. You don't have to worry about it. Equivalence is a big issue when you're traveling across the world, right?
Yeah.
Government jobs, not a problem. So, that assurance that the program is being vetted and that you don't have to worry, I think is mental security that every parent and every student wants. And we are actually, every time I meet parents, this is a part of the awareness program that so many don't know because that's not information that's easily available. So, this is something that we take pride in, that every single program, we offer 10 programs right now, all of them fully accredited. So whether it's our MBA program, which is actually what Symbiosis is known for,
Flagship one.
the flagship brand, or the 9 bachelor programs that we offer, from a BTech in computer engineering and the computer applications to, psychology, to media and communications, a BCom that we will offer with ACCA Prep, a BBA program. We also offer a dual degree with Aston University in our BBA program. So all of these fully accredited. You don't need to worry. Close your eyes, take admission, enjoy classes, knowing that you've got a university that's committed. I think that's really important for me. That is everyone passionate about the teaching learning process? Do you enjoy being with young adults? So, when I interact with young teachers or older teachers, that's one of the questions that what do you like about young adults?
Yeah.
And if I get the feeling that this person doesn't really have much respect for young adults, I'm is this person really the kind of person that I want in my college as faculty? And I struggle there
I have a
because
question over here. You mentioned about accreditation.
Yeah.
Accreditation means that your education is future proof.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Then there is something called being industry ready.
Yes.
How do you ensure that the courses you are doing today and the students you are training today are actually industry ready? Because just to give you a stat, in North India, 3 states, Haryana, Punjab, Himachal, they give almost 1 million engineers every year. Only 12% of them are industry hireable.
Yeah.
So how do you work on this stat?
You're absolutely right. If anyone were to say that all my students are industry ready, I think we'd have to keep our fingers crossed when we say
Yeah.
that. Is our education future proof? I don't think anyone's going to be able to say that, because what is future proof?
Yeah.
Nobody knows what the future holds. In fact, if there's only one thing that we're certain about, it is that we know nothing about the future.
Uncertainty.
Is the uncertainty,
Yeah.
right? Then what is it that educational institutions can do? What is it that we focus on? So at Symbiosis, we've figured out a couple of things based on what has been the global research and the study, which either consultants have been doing or the thinkers
Hmm.
of the world, public intellectuals, academic surveys, is that there are few things that we know for sure. We know for sure that people are going to travel across the world.
Okay.
We know for sure that people from different cultural backgrounds and different disciplinary backgrounds are going to have to work together in order to solve global problems, local problems, etc. We know for sure that with technology invading our lives the way it is, critical thinking on how to use technology, how to anticipate change is going to become very important. So, therefore, we know that certain skills are going to become very important. And this is one of the ways we hope we're future proofing the kind of education that we're offering to our students and to our faculty. So, therefore, this becomes these transferable skills that every curriculum needs to be based on. So, it doesn't matter whether you're studying maths or you're studying physics or you're studying, let's say, media or theories of media. All of these skills are going to be embedded in the way students learn and the way they get assessed. The second thing is that you want to become as close
Hmm.
to what industry wants, because honestly speaking, higher education has changed. 20 years ago, I struggled with this. When I became a teacher, we talked about citizenship,
Hmm.
and we talked about that who is an educated person. And an educated person was someone, who understood politics and who understood literature and, who watched cinema and could have a discourse on that. And they were good human beings. And who is a good human being and all of that, right? With industrialization, capitalism, economies going up and down and crazy, those things have changed now.
Yeah.
Now, for 99% of the people, uh, it means a good job. It means a stable job.
Yeah.
It means, how can I set up a business and then give jobs to other people? So the reality is that now there is a return on investment, which may not just be financial, but is security, employability, standing on your own 2 feet and being able to take care of your family. So the minute that came in, organizations like ours, educational institutions like ours, have had to work with industry. That if I want Infosys to hire and employ my computer application students, or if I want Fortinet or whatever to hire my students, then what should my students be knowing? What should they have learned? Should they learn design thinking? Should they learn programming? Should they learn Gen AI? What is it? Should they know maths? Uh, are you expecting them to understand language? So, these conversations and discussions that happen with industry cannot happen at a superficial level. So you can't go to one conference and figure out stuff, right? So therefore, working with industry, getting them their representatives onto our academic boards, inviting them in as visiting professors,
Hmm.
professors of practice, adjunct faculty, master classes, workshops, ensuring that our faculty get to spend time with industry. Because it's not just that we've got to future-proof students
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah.
It's actually not future proofing the education. It's about future proofing your ability to learn,
Yeah.
learning how to learn.
To unlearn and learn.
Exactly. At the same time, faculty need to be ahead of the curve as well.
True.
So offering them opportunities for consulting, to do projects, to research. So that's one of the ways that we keep in touch. At Symbiosis, one of the things that I mentioned that we have got this brilliant set of alum here. So we have this wonderful series that we call the Symbi Inspires series, in which every fortnight, every 2 or 3 weeks, we invite an alum
Hmm.
to come in and talk to the students, to talk about the sector that they're in, to talk about their journey, to inspire and talk about why they've reached where they are. How do they navigate that entire journey? Where did they fail? What did they learn from there? We also have a Symbi Connects, which reaches out to, if I can say, non-alum,
Hmm.
but people who are
Industry leaders.
industry leaders, um, leaders who people who had startups and who failed, and because it's equally important for students to learn why things fail, because more startups fail than they succeed,
Yeah.
and that failure is a huge learning tool. And that shouldn't be afraid of failing, right? So these are some of the ways that we work with them. We recently had an HR conclave, which is a brilliant conclave, a day of very active discussion on how is the how is the power of people within organizations. How does it manifest itself? How have things changed? Has AI changed? AI is something that
Is a separate question in my mind.
uh,
You mentioned a very interesting word in quotes, ROI. most education institutes are profit driven. Was profit one of the key elements of you guys moving outside India and choosing Dubai as the economy? Just to give you a couple of positive points, Dubai's proximity to India, to Pune, let's say, which is your primary area, is 3 hours, 3.5 hours. The dollar value in UAE and dirham is a stable relationship. The students' inflow is always going to be there. There are almost 3 to 4 million people in UAE, most of them Indians, and they already have an established relationship. So if you enter Pune, either somebody works for Infosys or they are a Symbiosis student, and there is a high chance that you might be a Infosys employee and a student at the same time at Symbiosis. So what made you guys are you guys profit driven in simple words?
Okay, I love it when people ask me this question because I'm always dying to
And that's my $100 in the bag.
yes. I'm dying to disabuse people
Please.
um, of this. I think there is a perception, and I don't blame the public for having this perception, that education has become over the years a business.
Yeah.
And for many, it has. But I'm a great believer that life isn't totally white or totally black, and that there is a small, narrow range of gray. I think there are, across the world, some organizations that have held on uh, to their core vision. I've been with Symbiosis for 40 years. You said that 1985, right? I have been lucky, blessed. I think it's one of my greatest blessings in life that I have been personally mentored by the founder. I've seen him up front, and every time we've talked about something, he brings us back to our core. Why did we start? We didn't start to make money. The minute money becomes your focus, you will never achieve what you set out to achieve. What is it that we set out to achieve? Something very lofty. And again, I don't blame people for being skeptical because we've had so many people disappoint us. Especially the Indian population has had so many organizations fail us that when you hear someone say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family, I am here for international students to have a home, people are going to say, really? And I'm here to tell you that yes, really, because we live with this. Are we driven by profit? Absolutely not. Do we make profit? Absolutely not. But we do run very effectively and efficiently. We are a not for profit. And even in Dubai, we are a not for profit.
If there is an Anshika sitting in Chandigarh right now, just appeared and got average marks, let's say 65-70% marks in grade 12, and now she wants to take a decision in finding the right university or college or the course for her, what are the 3 things she should be looking at?
First, she should be looking at herself. She should be talking to close friends, teachers, family to figure out what is it that Anshika wants to do and what is it that Anshika is good at and what is it that Anshika has the skills to do. You know, Symbiosis runs this summer school for the last so many years. And it's a residential program. 10th, 11th, 12th kids who come for career counseling and stuff like that. And every year I used to ask the group a question. We had all these careers and all these educational programs. And I said, if all the careers in the world, from janitor, housekeeper, cook, banker, politician, if all of them tomorrow, by the wave of a magic wand, all of them offered the same remuneration,
Yeah.
the same salary, and they'd look.
Mm.
And I would say, no, think, let it steep in. What would you choose to be? 100% kids struggled to answer. And then when I asked them why are you struggling, they say, but I always thought bankers earned a lot of money. I always thought chartered accountants earned a lot of money. I said, so let's assume that they all earn 50,000. The plumber is also earning 50,000. The janitor is also earning 50,000. The banker is also earning 50,000. They struggle because as a society, we have attached status to a degree, a discipline, a profession based on how much they earn.
Yeah.
And how much they earn has nothing to do with their contribution to society. Correct? So, therefore, children grow up actually never knowing what they want. Parents also look at professions from a security point of view. Engineer ban jayega, then all is well, because the guy will earn money. He might be miserable at his job. So he'll be miserable 29, 30 days of the month, but on the 31st day, he'll be happy with the money that he earns. And
At least
that's
for the
okay.
next 2-3 days.
So at least, roti kapda makan is taken care of, right? Food, clothing, shelter. I think Anshika needs to spend some time, because in a world where too many people are struggling with self-esteem, self-worth, mental health issues, with being misfits, organizations are also becoming impatient with young graduates or young employees who are struggling to fit in.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing that Anshika needs to do is figure out, and it's difficult, but there are tried and tested ways of doing that. The second thing that Anshika needs to focus on is that with certain profession and discipline choices, you make certain life choices. When I decided to become a teacher, I remember my father absolutely angry that I did not sit for CAT,
Hmm.
because all my friends and my batchmates were sitting for CAT. And I said I want to do an MCOM and I want to become a teacher, because MCOM was the minimum qualification at that point in time. And I remember him looking at me, and this is in spite of him being a scientist and never going after money. Is that 20 years from now, you may be traveling by train and your colleagues might be in Mercedes Benzes. Are you going to be okay with that? And I said, yeah, I'm okay. Career choices come with sometimes life choices. And you have to be okay with those life choices, right? And the third thing is she needs to do some homework on her own.
Yeah.
In terms of educational institutions, their rankings, their accreditation, disciplines. There are so many new educational programs that we're unaware of.
True.
There are so many. You meet someone and say, oh my God, you do that?
Yeah.
And say, yeah, there's an institute and there are many institutes. So there are so many hidden gems of educational programs that students are unaware of, because the schools that they went to were probably unaware of it. Career counseling isn't a well developed program in this part of the world, right? Is that they tell you about banking this. There is a standard 10, 20. So I think she needs to spend a lot of time on just doing research on what are the new educational programs, what are the new disciplines, what are the new careers. I think she probably should sit and do some mind mapping, in terms of what is the need for today.
Yeah.
And what are the problems that people have, and she just looks around her, she will see 101 problems, and anyone who can solve that problem has a business idea. So I think those are the three things she needs to do on her own, and then she needs to sit down with a trusted school teacher or a family member, and say, I think I'm really good at this,
Hmm.
and I really hate this. It's very important to know what you don't want to do,
Exactly.
instead of thinking about what you want to do. So I think with that, she's on good foundation.
She's on good front.
And maybe attend a summer school run by Symbiosis.
Hopefully soon. Perfect. You've spoken about ways wherein Symbiosis Dubai is similar to Symbiosis Pune or any of the Symbiosis brand institutes. How is Symbiosis Dubai unique from the other institutes?
Great question. That's going to need me a second to think. I think Symbiosis Dubai is different for a couple of reasons. From a purely academic and operational point of view, our job is managing two systems. So we're a branch campus, correct? Which means we follow Government of India, Ministry of Education, UGC rules. We need to follow those. And we are here under CAA accreditation, which means we follow CAA norms. Now, most of the norms The vision is the same
Fairly
because
similar.
globally higher education processes might change, documentation might change, but I think it's yet a challenge because we're new. Uh, so someone like me knows the Indian system, been in it, been through it for so many years that like the back of your hand, right? But things keep changing, so you're in touch. I think that the first challenge or the first unique distinctiveness is that it's a program that's extra. I think a little extra than India
Hmm.
because of this is that we are catering to two different economies. I think we're also different because, and my colleagues in India may not like me for saying this, but I think the Indian Symbiosis Institutes cater primarily to an Indian or to the Indian economy.
Yeah.
Correct? Which means primarily, not that they don't have international
Students.
student. I mean, they do definitely do because we reach our 20%, 25%. We're fulfilling all of that every single year. But in terms of the planning of the program and the planning of jobs and the planning of, where our students going to go, it tends to be majorly catering because the Indian economy has such huge needs and the Indian industry has huge needs, right? Here, we're different. Here, we're not catering to Indian industry. We're not saying, take my students and add them to the pool in India and
Hmm.
help them get jobs. I mean, you might belong to the Indian diaspora, but my MBA kids are not getting added to the SIBM MBA pool. I'm saying we're unique and distinctive, and we're going to cater to an international industry. And so, therefore, we're not just looking at the Middle East. We're looking at Asia, Africa, and we're saying, how do we build a program that resonates and is reflective of the needs of this larger region? And I think to that extent, the choices that we make in terms of faculty, the choices that we make in terms of collaborations, all of this has that extra that probably, like I said, my colleagues in India may not like it, probably is not that nuanced. I think here it's very strong.
Yeah.
In India, it might be slightly less strong or less nuanced.
There are few things which make education in Dubai lot different than being educated in a UK or a US. It is not just about being a tax-free salary. It's also about the lifestyle, the security, as you rightly mentioned, and lot more things which are pros over here. What do you think should a student? What is your target segment over here? Are you looking at Indians based out of UAE or Indians living in India who are traveling outside to come to your campus?
So let me answer that question in two ways. Immediately, because we're new here, it is very practical for us to focus on the Indian diaspora here because they know about us. So we're not starting from zero that uh, who is Symbiosis. Yes, there are Indians in India who want to have an international experience. And for a large number of parents, Dubai seems like a closer place to home, safer, cleaner, etc. So I think during the first phase, maybe for the first 5 years, I think the Indian diaspora and the Indian community back at home that wants an international education is going to be um, the person that we get.
Hmm.
The largest cohort is going to come from there. Um, we will get a smaller number of people from other regions, non Indian origin, and we are happy and we do welcome them. And that's already started. I think the vision is to be an Indian origin university, very proud of our Indian roots, but an international university. I think a day will come, probably if we're lucky, within 5 years, 5 to 7 years, where maybe Indians need to compete to get into Symbiosis Dubai because you'll have people from across, and I believe it's going to be this region.
Hmm.
I believe it's going to be Africa, the Middle East, Asia. I don't see, of course, to be honest, a lot of people from other Western countries are also looking towards Dubai. And I think we can be beneficiaries of that as well. I mean, Western countries that once upon a time were very strong are struggling in terms of their economy.
Yeah.
I think they're also struggling on social indicators as well. And suddenly, Dubai is like this beacon, right? It's safe, it's clean. I don't I don't think people realized, till I came here, I did not realize how amazingly clean this place is, the public spaces.
Yeah.
And for people today, we've been through a pandemic and we go through all of this, and you realize cleanliness is something that's so, we don't talk about it enough, but
Yeah.
it's crucial.
Yeah.
So, whether it's clean, whether it's safe, whether it's multicultural, I mean, I am amazed at how this, the UAE and Dubai specifically, has opened up its doors to different cultures where you not just are able to come in over here, but you're able to live the way that you live. And I think that is something that's going to attract a lot of people. Uh, I bump into people from Australia and New Zealand and England and Canada and America, and they don't want to go back.
Yeah.
They're like, I came here for 3 years and now I've been here for 15 years and I want my kids to settle down over here. I think we want to partner with the UAE in this. So Symbiosis sees itself as a very strong partner because the UAE has this vision, right? To be a strong education destination, a hub for multicultural. It's not just that you want education to flourish here for the local Emiratis, but you want it to flourish for everybody, and that people will come here from across the world. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if people from America came here, because why wouldn't you? It's like the best of the West
And these.
with the East in a safe, clean environment. Uh, this is like a miracle, right?
My wife calls Dubai the global Chandigarh because it is cleaner, it is safer, it is very well organized at times. And just like in Chandigarh, you can never be wrong with your way. It's a straight road.
Okay.
It is just in that aspect, it touches a little bit of Delhi that
Okay.
if you're on the road, you take a wrong turn, 20 minutes gone.
Yeah. Well, I haven't been to Chandigarh. I have a lot of students who are from Chandigarh, and all I have ever had is the wonderful tikkas and kebabs.
Which you should get in Dubai easily as well.
Absolutely.
The language.
Brilliant.
You
Brilliant.
speak to anyone in Hindi, Urdu, Punjabi, they'll be able to respond to it. Beyond your normal 9 to 5 life, do you watch movies?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I watch. I'm a huge superhero film buff. My kids laugh and say first day, first show.
Which superhero is your favorite?
It's always a toss up between Batman and Iron Man.
Okay.
I think Iron Man sometimes wins because Robert Downey Jr. is total eye candy.
Yeah.
Dreams are made of stuff like that. So that, plus I like action. I like action movies as well.
Okay.
I can watch Die Hard 100 times.
Everybody can.
Yeah, I still watch Mission Impossible, however old Tom Cruise.
Yeah, true. So imagine if there is a movie being made on your life.
Ayo, no way.
And which is one actress you think could portray Dr. Anita in that movie?
How does one answer a question like this without sounding narcissistic?
Just by going with the flow.
I would love it if Meryl Streep were to do it, but I don't know.
Any rom-coms you like?
You've Got Mail is my go-to.
Okay. Tom Hanks,
Tom Hanks,
Meg Ryan. Love
gets me every
chemistry.
time. I must have seen it 100 times, and I love it every single time.
The moment you
For
said
some reason, Runaway Bride. I don't know why, but for some reason, Runaway Bride. I have no. Maybe it's just I don't know. Maybe it's Richard Gere.
maybe I guess. I find
I don't know.
my best friend's wedding also interesting.
Huh.
I watched a lot of rom-coms.
Yeah. I watched the first movie that I went to alone. I watched The Accountant 2
Dubai?
in Dubai,
An action movie?
an action movie.
Why is it a big thing for going to the movie alone?
I think for me, maybe my generation as women, I grew up thinking, believing, being told that you didn't go to a restaurant alone and you didn't go for a movie alone.
Okay.
I went to restaurants alone when I traveled. But in my city, I wouldn't get up like men go comfortably.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go to a restaurant on my own and eat, uh, knowing that I could wait for a couple of hours and have my husband join me. So I think women my age didn't go to restaurants alone because we might be judged.
Yeah.
I think going for a movie was even worse.
Hmm.
That you didn't go because God knows who's going to sit beside you. God knows what kind of a message they're going to get. God knows what message they think you're giving. Uh, it never struck us. It was just something you didn't do alone. Uh, but in the last 10 years, it's been niggling me that,
Hmm.
because I'm also a strong feminist, right?
Yeah.
Is it why can't I? And then you find some reason not to. Or someone at home always says, Arey, you want to go and see a movie? I'll come with you.
What else is there on your bucket list? Let's have the top 3 items over there.
I'd like to write a book.
I expected that to come in. Okay.
I think I'd like to do a cooking vlog
Okay.
because I like cooking. I think I'd like to travel by train over a long distance all by myself because I love traveling by train.
Any particular place in mind?
No,
Country in
I
mind?
just love travel.
बस गाड़ी होनी चाहिए.
बस train होनी चाहिए. I mean, I've
कश्मीर से
traveled,
कन्याकुमारी. Okay.
the Konkan Railway also, and whatever. So a couple of those things on my bucket list. Simple things,
A 60-year-old Anita talking to a 20-year-old Anita, what would she tell her?
She wouldn't tell her anything. She would say, live your life the way you want to live. Don't worry about what's going to happen when you're 60. Just live your life, live with no regrets. That's one thing that I've lived by. No regrets. You make mistakes, you learn from them, you own them, you move on.
Is there any student story which you still feel very proud of?
Oh, so many. I've had, over the years, I taught at BCom, I've taught at the MBA level, the executive MBA, liberal arts, of course, now, Symbiosis Dubai. I think there are a few stories that have been important. I had this brilliant girl who was at the Commerce College and did very well, could have had a great corporate career, chose to become a cop. And I remember meeting her years later as this proud, honest cop who decided to straddle a very difficult job for a woman, in those days. I remember another student who did his BCom and then chose not to do anything else, but said, I've got a brain. I'm going to worked across a number of organizations, including Times of India, etc. Now is an entrepreneur, is in the education space, saying that I am who I am because of the education that I got in school and at college at the graduate level. And now is reaching out with AI-enabled education programs. I had this brilliant Kenyan student at the School for Liberal Arts, was on a scholarship, was studying computer studies and international relations, and said, I'm going to work on a blockchain-enabled system. And he worked on it while he was studying at his 4-year liberal arts program in Pune. And said, I'm going to go back to Kenya and I'm going to work with schools. He's in Kenya working with 350 schools, and saying, I need to change lives. I think there are so many students who are doing brilliant work and inspiration. I mean, I'm amazed at how did you think of this and how did you not get scared that you would fail? Or how did you choose a career that was going to be tough when you could have chosen the easy way, and made a lot of money? But there are so many cases, and I'm just blessed to have known them. And every year there's someone or the other who's doing something brilliant. And I think the world turns around with all the scandals and all the scams and all the politicians who let us down simply because there are enough people and more
It's good
You know.
choice, you know.
who have their heart in the right place and who are not afraid of hard work.
How easy it is to be a teacher's child.
Or-
I wish I would have asked this from your sons actually.
yeah, you'll have to ask my kids, but uh, and I hope they don't look at this and say liar. Um, I have a feeling they would say um, that it was good. I think from my perspective, being a teacher helped me understand them better, helped me understand what teenagers go through and what college going kids go through. And I think I was more tolerant of some of the stuff that they did
Okay.
uh, because I got it. I think the cultural shifts that took place over the years didn't scare me because I'd seen my students go through stuff, land on their feet, uh, and grow. I think being a teacher also helped me focus on not the marks, but whether they were intelligent or not, whether they understood what was happening in the world, whether they could articulate their thoughts, whether they were afraid of expressing themselves to me. And I think that's a message that I kept giving them. That I don't really care about the marks as long as you're learning something in life and you turn out to be a good human being. So I think they would say that it wasn't difficult. Um, Plus, I taught both of them in college. They both went to the Symbiosis school. I didn't teach them there. Thank God for that. But when they came to college, I taught them. Um, I think they enjoyed themselves. I think they challenged me in class. Uh, and they didn't treat me like their mom in class. And therefore, because they kept challenging me, the rest of the kids kind of got inspired. And then they all decided that, okay, we need to challenge Pats and trouble her to no ends. But as a result, we all learned a lot. So I think it wasn't, but I have a feeling as a generalization, I don't think you want your mom or your dad teaching in the same school as you. I think college could be a little different.
You mentioned something about marks being important. How important are marks for a child's career?
I personally don't think they mean anything.
But it is still part of your evaluation to the school or college entrance exam.
Absolutely. I personally don't think it means anything in the long run.
Yeah.
I think marks have a role to play and they are an indicator of how well you fit into the schooling system that you have been enrolled in.
Hmm.
How good you are at understanding the assessments that the school or the college has given you and the expectations that the system has from you. I think marks do not reflect the overall intelligence or the overall ability that a student has to fit into this world and to navigate the future in the world. So if you read, for example, Daniel Goleman, who wrote that seminal piece on emotional intelligence, to cut a long story short, he says that people who do really well in school and college don't necessarily do well in life.
True.
And people who really do well in life were probably slightly mediocre when they were in school and college. Because we're talking about an average school and an average college and not talking about those islands of excellence. Um, so I think marks have become larger than life for many parents who probably don't understand that this is only checking one part of the child's growth.
Yeah. True.
Correct? For example, the stereotypical Indian education is about how good are you at understanding and reproducing, right? How good are you at memorizing stuff?
Yeah.
Um, but it doesn't necessarily show you how good you are at critical analysis unless the exam is structured that way. How good is it at guessing how curious you are? Or how creative you are in terms of something, or how good you are at negotiation. So I think marks have to be kept. You have to be very mindful that it's one indicator. It's not the only indicator. And Yes, definitely marks are important. So you need to pass because you do need degrees, to open doors. Very rarely have people dropped out of college and yet done brilliantly. There are
Examples,
examples,
yeah.
but that's the minority, right? I mean, the majority will need a degree. But once a door opens, the first door opens, I think suddenly the value of those marks drops. And then it is, what do you deliver? What do you bring to the table? How good are you at working in groups and delivering? And I think that is where the challenge is. And many parents today are finding parenting
Hmm.
a huge responsibility because while the school takes care of the marks and the degrees, they are taking care of this other part of learning. So, taking your kid to a museum and taking them to a zoo and, opening up an encyclopedia and studying with them, or, talking about why is this happening? Why was there a ceasefire? What does a ceasefire mean? So, parents today will tell you it's a tough job being a parent, right? Because that's what they've decided, that this isn't enough, this isn't enough. And very few people can afford to send their kids or have access to a school that does both,
Hmm.
you know. So marks in its I've never personally, I've never paid
Been a
much
fan of.
attention. No, let's say my own kids, I've not judged by the marks that they've earned. Uh, because it's through the conversation that I'm judging them. But everybody can't do that, right?
There's a lot has changed in education and the way it is perceived. Maybe when you started 35, 40 years ago, we had to open a new college, there would be pamphlets. Today, you are as good as any other content creator sitting in front of the camera on an evening, on a working day, and talking to us and giving us insights. It is a very visible job. Everybody know who's Dr. Anita, what she does, and she's there in front of the camera on their small screens. Despite their short span of attention, she's there.
Mm.
She's talking to you and she's giving you the gyan that you need for your child's life. How easy was it for you to adjust to this life?
I made a little bit of the adjustment, or let's say I made a big part of the adjustment when I shifted from the Arts and Commerce College at Symbiosis to the liberal arts program. Because at that time, it was the first program in the country. People didn't know about it.
Hmm.
And therefore, we had to travel across the country, kind of being evangelists, telling people what is a liberal arts program and why a liberal arts program was a good option to consider. So I think at that point of time, I made that shift.
The conscious decision.
The conscious decision, because Symbiosis needed it to be done. That we were investing in this program, and therefore it was our responsibility to explain to people what the program was and what the philosophy behind the education was, etc. So that going out there, doing public seminars, doing webinars, going to schools, talking to parents, happened there. Then, of course, India, I won't say embraced the liberal arts, but I think it became a program that at least people had heard about, right? I mean, other programs got set up. Here, it's at a different level.
Hmm.
So, when I moved to Dubai, it wasn't traveling across the length and breadth of the country. It was sitting like this, a podcast. So, I had not done a podcast, in India, done videos for sure.
Yeah.
Students would shoot a video and put it up on YouTube, and all of that was what was happening. But as a part of the regular communication to parents, to society, where I'm talking about the program, I'm talking about the Symbiosis value system, where I'm thanking, for example, this country, the rulers of this, country. This is happening for the first time. Luckily, um, our vice chancellor is a very IT savvy individual, so he does a lot of mentoring. Pro Chancellor Dr. Vidya travels the world and talks on internationalization, and she's kind of an expert at all of this. And we have alum, and I have a team that works on this. So I have people
Yeah.
helping
What
me.
guys with me?
I got people helping me, propping me up whenever I need, and uh, I think I like it.
Yeah.
I think I like the opportunity to share. I think education is so important, and we don't spend enough time talking about it. It's seen as a tool to get a job, and it's so much more than that. That
Yeah.
I love this opportunity, and at this age, um, people listen.
Yeah.
You
For
know,
a teacher, they always listen, right?
yeah, but I think age kind of helps because they must be thinking, oh, because she probably has learned a lot over the years.
Yeah.
She's not a newbie.
मैंने ये बाल धूप में सफेद नहीं किए हैं, right?
Exactly. I said
You
that.
use that.
ये मेरे I say that.
I can't even say that. Imagine.
So, so I enjoy it. I love the fact that technology is helping us reach out to so many people that we couldn't have met otherwise,
Yeah.
and that they understand what symbiosis is. But more than that, they also understand what a good education should be, and what is the thought process that you must go through as a family before you make choices. Because I feel educational choices have become family choices.
Hmm.
You know.
Which is one thing in your life which you think today, if you would have learned a little earlier, you would have benefited more?
I think as an administrator, I wish I had learned uh, finances and the ability to interpret and analyze financial statements much earlier. I learned only when I was working with the liberal arts. I wish I had done that much earlier. Um, it would have been easier, and I feel I would have been a little more effective. That's definitely one thing that I look back and I said I should have started 5-10 years earlier in terms of effectiveness with which I transitioned into becoming an uh, academic administrator. As far as work is concerned, I don't think anything else. Maybe I could have learned about social media a few years earlier. I still need a little bit of help over there. Definitely, definitely, that is something uh, that I could have learned earlier. In my personal life, I would say I'm good. I'm happy. No regrets. Whatever I didn't learn, I'm happy to learn today. Like I said, I'm a glass is always more than half full, if not overflowing. I don't beat myself up about stuff I didn't. I don't expect perfection from myself, so I'm okay.
How does a typical day of an academic administrator look like?
I think it's a combination role uh, because you're a teacher as well. Unfortunately, the teaching becomes a little less prioritized.
Yeah.
There was a time when I was just a teacher and was teaching a good 20, 25, 30 hours a week, and I loved it. Today, I would say 80, 90, almost touching 100 is administrator. I think it's a combination. I think I look at my job in three big buckets. I think the first is looking at faculty and helping faculty um, assess whether they have all the skills and all the training that they need to be able to implement and update the curriculum and their own teaching abilities, teaching learning process. So that's a big part of being in touch um, with faculty, with their needs, with their feedback, with what they're doing, how they're uh, innovating, improvising. That's one big part of it. Linked to that is the second in terms of being in touch with society, which includes industry,
Hmm.
in terms of curriculum, in terms of activities. So stakeholders, uh, which include accreditation, compliances, industry requirements, workshops. We have a Center for Professional Studies, for example, in which we offer, executive development programs, etc., which is all a part of being an educator to society. And I think the third bucket is students. Um, and I'm saying first, second, third, not in terms of priority,
Clarity, yeah.
but in terms of amount of time that I tend to spend
True.
on them, is the students. That constantly being with them, uh, formally and informally, uh, just being in touch with what are their problems, what are they struggling with, how happy are they, why are they happy, what are they reading, what are they listening to, uh, what makes them tick, what worries them, uh, what kind of aspirations do they have, what kind of jobs are they looking for, are they looking for jobs, how are they going to choose that, the entire thinking. I mean, I would love to say that I get what it is to be a 20, 22, 25-year-old kid today in this day and age, so that I can use that to fill those other areas much faster. But I think as an administrator, that's the way I see my role, because that's what I'm spending the maximum amount of time on.
When you move from one project to another, there is a sense of detachment you would have for the previous project. How do you overcome that?
Oh, I'm blessed. I have not had to do it. I have lovely leaders who've protected me totally. Like I said, my mentor, the chancellor, pro chancellor, Dr. Vidya, who I work with, when I moved from the School for Liberal Arts a couple of years ago to the international office, she looked at me and she said, you're going to be miserable without your baby. So be an advisor there. So I'm still an advisor at the School for Liberal Arts. When I moved to Dubai, she said, you're going to be miserable without your international students. So continue, wear that hat, work remotely. So I am still the director of the Symbiosis Center for International Education when I'm here. So I wear those three hats, and I am very thankful, because you're right. I would have been miserable, and I don't think detachment comes easily to me.
Yeah.
I think, and maybe, I don't know, in future I might look back and say I should have learned it. I mean,
It would have been easier.
Krishna talks about it, right?
Yeah.
I've never understood it, to be honest. The whole be detached and be happy. I don't see. Uh, I get emotionally attached to every teacher I meet, every colleague I have, every student that I am with. I'm very happy being totally attached. And Symbiosis gives me the freedom to do that. Um, I don't think I would have done that. But having said that, I think I'm also a practical person. I would have probably convinced, like I said, I'm very good at talking to myself. I would have probably convinced myself that
ठीक
it would have
है
been
ना?
painful. It would have been painful, but I would have done it. I'm just blessed that I haven't had to do it.
Do you believe in manifestation?
I don't know exactly what it means, but if it means that you keep talking to yourself about it and the things happen, I understand the psychological motivation behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Share me an instance that you have manifested something, maybe like coming to Dubai or coming on this podcast, and it happened eventually.
Oh yeah. I was totally dreaming of coming on this podcast, and I kept saying to myself before going to bed that I need to go there.
आज एक दिन पंकज से मिलने चला है मुझे.
It happened.
Exactly. Any such instance from your life beyond Symbiosis?
I don't know whether you would call it manifestation or not. Um, I think my husband and I, and then later the kids and I, uh, as a family, we worked hard towards whatever we wanted. I don't think we would call that manifestation.
Okay.
We didn't have any fancy words, or we didn't do any. No, I think we just thought of things that we wanted to move towards, and we worked hard towards it. We got some things, we didn't get some things, and we were okay.
So is life.
Yeah, so is life. Such is life. Yeah.
With the people in the studio, we manifested something for you, and we believe that this particular image that you're going to see now is befitting to your confidence, to your learnability, to your adaptability, and to your age, being so young at heart, and understanding what the kids of today need and what the kids of the future would need. So I think please have a look at this. And I hope this is a manifestation from our side. It's a popular award over here
Oh my!
from the field of education. And we believe that one day this becomes true in the next couple of years.
Brilliant.
Symbiosis International University becomes a brand to reckon with in the region and beyond.
Thank you so much. And this is something that I will treasure and I will keep at my desk. Thank you so much. Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And with this, we conclude our today's episode where we spoke to Dr. Anita and understood what it means to be a mom of 100,000 plus kids and see them nurture, happy, laugh, cry, and do so many things each day. And to all of those students, share this episode with some of your symbiosis stories, and we would love to share it with our audience as well. Let us know in comments how you feel about today's episode, and when Dr. Anita comes back again after 3 years, what are the questions you want me to ask from her? Let us know in the comments. Thank you.